Hey everyone, nice to see you, Jason.
Yes, hello.
And so I've been going through many courses from Magic.me, and I wanted to discuss about some paradoxes that I came through, particularly two, but I will start with the bigger one. Because I don't know if there are paradoxes by nature in themselves, or if there is something that I don't get. So the biggest one I have is on the true will. About the true will. I went through the Adept Initiative, and at the end of it, from my understanding, I'm talking my understanding, doesn't mean that it's what you meant to teach. I felt like, okay, I have this vision for my life. This is what I want to be, and I'm going to optimize and continually going through to actually get there in a way, and to make manifest this into reality. I then went through the advanced Chaos Magick course, and at the end of it, I sort of felt relieved in a way because I understood better the concept of okay, there is a void in here. Everything is the void beyond besides the connections that there are between us individuals, and so I can. That's why Jason was telling me to decide my vision in a way and who I wanted to be. But what about the true will? That I think it's the Dharma, right? That it is something that instead is fixed and it's generated by the void. Is there a moment when I realize, okay, that's my true will, or is it more of a feeling? Because for now, I meditate quite a lot and so on. I kind of get a feeling of, okay, that's what I've written down. And when I have to make a decision, I can kind of feel myself. I'm like, okay, well, I really think that this is the best decision for me. Is it more of a feeling every time, or is there really a moment when you're like, okay, I figured it out, that's my true will, and so on? And how much the true will is really something that we are deciding to manifest, and how much is it really something, that it's really come from the void, like, I don't know, love or something else that is fixed. I hope it's clear what I meant.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, these are tough paradoxes, right? And so the first thing I'll say is Chaos Magic and Thelema are two totally different magic systems, right? And Chaos Magic actually is, at least is formulated by Carroll, which is pretty much the actual Chaos Magic. Everything else is not really Chaos Magic, in my opinion. But Chaos Magic is formulated by Peter Carroll. He explicitly rejects the true will. He says there is no true will. That's actually one of the fundamental axioms of Chaos Magic. It's like, no, just do your thing. And so it's a very different approach. He completely rejects it, and he says there's only results magic. Right? It's a pretty radical approach. It's still a radical approach, and it's an uncomfortable approach because I think at the end of the day, even chaos magicians, everyone wants just to be told what to do. It's very comforting, right? You know, it's like living in a world of infinite choice and consequences is hard, and not just hard, but it can feel meaningless and frightening. And these are deep human questions that have been worked out over thousands of years and are worked out in everyone's lifetime. So I would say I would first caution you from attempting to resolve the paradox theoretically. These are just different approaches. You can see how they feel, and it's the only way that you resolve these things is, I'll just say this: the only way that you can come to any type of conclusion, or at least not conclusion because it's an ongoing process, but understanding of the true will is by practice and by closely analyzing your own life. Right? There's no other way to do it because it's not like it is in the books, and it's not just that it's not like it is in the books. It's different for everyone. So, at least as far as I can tell, there's no cookie cutter approach. Even in Thelema, they say that. It's like Thelema is like, well, here's about like 17 different magical techniques. And if you're serious about this, you better learn all of them. But it's not because you need all of them, because some tend to work for people and some don't. But it's so that one can teach them. But that's only at the higher registers, right? That's for the average person. That's not necessary. And but the reason that there are so many, and this is also something that confuses people, I think, which is God, like, gosh, excuse me, pardon my language. Gosh, there's so many systems in the world. There's so many religions. There's so many gods, so many pantheons, so many psychological methods, so many drugs you can do, like so many. There's so much out there, and everyone thinks they have the truth. Like, what the hell? What the hell? Like, this is so confusing, and it's made more confusing now because for the first time for a long time, maybe in a couple thousand years, people have access to all the information. You can go. It's not only that you can now see and interact with all this stuff on the internet. If you live in a place like New York or another big city, you can go meet people who are doing those practices that day. It's like this is the magical golden age. It's all out there if you look, and it's not that hard to find it. So whatever it is, but therefore that leaves us with another problem, which is like, well, what's true? And not like that problem hasn't been there before, but it's like in a lot of these cultures that these systems come from, it's like that was the system. It's like there wasn't really a whole lot of choice, or maybe there was a choice between a couple different things, and depending on what group you were in, you were probably fighting the other group to the death, right? It's like so and so it's a new world we're in, and this is one of the things that I hope to this is one of the things that I've struggled at great length in my life to try and reconcile these things, and this is one of the services that I hope to perform people, is to give some helpful context on things, because it is quite confusing, and make sense of it a bit, because this is a totally new experimental period. I think that, but what I was going to say is, you could look at it this way. Yes, there are so many systems in the world, but how many people are there in the world? There's like 7 billion, probably 8 billion now, soon to be 8 billion, soon to be 9 billion people in the world. The same things are not going to work for everyone. Everyone comes from different cultures. They have different backgrounds. They're raised different ways. In Abramelin, it says, like, stick with whatever you were raised with, and do magic on top of that, but stick with the religion you were raised with. So in terms of how do you know but if you're somebody like me, you're like, shit, I'm going to learn everything. I'm enjoying everything. Merge it all together into one ultimate transformer system. That doesn't actually work, by the way. But because a lot of these things are unreconcilable, and that's fascinating too. It's like, how can, and this is one of the things that Chaos Magick pointed out, but it can't, it was like, how can all these systems from totally different parts of the world with totally different assumptions of reality all work? Just to some extent, right? It's like, you can do, and this was Carol's point, it's like you can do magic from the perspective of Buddha and Santeria, or you can do it from Hindu animism, or you can do it from Buddhism, and it's like, yeah, there's differences, but everyone's doing magic. And that this is a great Zen cone in a way. It's like, and it's a cone that is lived experientially through your life, because you can paradigm shift and do a bunch of different systems of magic, realize they all work, and it's like, well, why do they all work? They're all working on different assumptions about what reality is. Well, maybe this demonstrates something about reality from a meta perspective, which is that reality is thermoplastic, as Bob Wilson would have put it. It's like reality actually will conform to your beliefs about it. Isn't that what magic is supposed to be? Yeah, but as I point out a lot, it's not like the beliefs that the universe doesn't conforms to are not really like, I believe that I currently have $50 in my hand. That'd be cool if that worked. But it's like, deep-seated assumptions about reality, like the deepest level beliefs, right? The universe is constantly responding to. But the universe is giving by nature, in my opinion. It's like the universe you could conceive of as an infinite goddess of compassion, right? That is constantly giving everyone what they want, but it's non-discriminative. So it's like, well, if you really want to live in like Grand Theft Auto 5, well, here you go. If you want to be a Zen monk, here you go. If you want to be, an angry, QAnon soccer mom, here you go. It's like, I just, the nature of the universe is to give. And it's for you to make the decision. And then to your other question of the true will versus, does the true will come from us or from somewhere else? I would say yes, right? Yes to both, right? As above, so below. It's like, what's really the difference between you and the universe, right? But I know that's a bit of a glib answer, but it seems to be both, right? And it is, everything is a paradox. And by the way, like, one of the laws of chaos, you shall know truth by its paradox. When you hit a paradox, an unresolvable paradox, rest assured that you're pretty close to reality, because the nature of reality is paradox. It's not cut and dry. There's no rule book, right? But when you find unresolvable paradoxes, you're getting close to supernal reality, because reality manifests as dual pairs, at least according to the magical tradition. So paradox is not a bad thing. Paradox just simply shows you how the universe is constructed. And I think this is one of the reasons why trickster teachers are often the best, because they don't tell you what to think. They just screw with you, right? But they will put. It's not just that they screw with you. It's like they put you in insane situations that are unresolvable, where you're like, that's a real teaching tool, right? Where you're put in a situation that doesn't make any sense. This is how the Tibetans do it, the Tibetan tantrics, right? They engineer situations that break down all your assumptions about reality, in which you have to basically operate outside of your logical framework in order to get through. And that's, but that shows you that brings you up to a higher level of understanding, which is, there's no rule book. And in terms of the true will, when do you know it's right? Well, it's not a conclusion point. It's not like you don't get a badge, you don't get a reward. It's a process. It's ongoing. It's ongoing, because the true will unfolds in time. And unless you're more enlightened than me and you have special powers, we can't really see through time, right? Yes, there's things like divination and things like that, but really and there's intuition, and if you really stop and listen, you can see ahead. But you ultimately can't perceive the whole course of time, because it ruins the suspension of disbelief as well. Now you can to some extent. I mean, I remember the last 5 of bits and pieces, the last 5 of my last lifetimes, right? They would horrify you all, but is it real? I don't know. I can't tell you that for sure. Maybe it's just things that are generated by altered states of consciousness. But then again, I look up the data when I get it, and it all checks out on Wikipedia really precisely, and I'm like, wow, okay, that's kind of crazy. I'll have a memory about a lifetime. It's like, that doesn't make any sense. And then I'll do research, and it's like, yeah, that actually was happening in that time in the world, in that place. That's kind of creepy. Not creepy. It's actually exciting. But the true will unfolds in time. It's a process. It is your life in a sense, right? But it's a life lived with the question of, what is the greatest thing for me to be doing with this lifetime? That question alone, most people don't ask, right? And it's not just to ask the question, it's to live in such a way that every day is the answer to that question. And every day is a reassessment of that question also. Most people never even ask the question. They just want to be passively fed and entertained. That's a sad way to live a life. Like Plato, nothing changes in the human world. I mean, Plato said this how long ago? He's like, it's like he said Plato said the unexamined life is not worth living. Okay, well, they probably teach you that in high school, and you're like, oh, great. Okay, so we should all be like philosophers and stuff, and it doesn't make any sense. And then it's like you grow up and you look around and you see people who've lived their whole lives sitting on the couch. They're checked out watching CNN or Fox News, and they're just like stuffing ice cream into their face, and they're like, we can do this from time to time, but it's like they're not even curious. And this is, I think, everyone always seems to think that the current generation is worse off than the last one. But I mean, look, I grew up in the tail end of the punk rock era. Things are so conformist now, far way beyond anything ever was, and let alone the industrial scene, which was just off the wall, right? Just total chaos. But now people are just like, oh, hey, The Office is on. It's like Big Bang Theory. Oh yeah, whatever Fauci says is good. It's like, I don't want to open up a can of worms, but people are just so controlled. They truly are. We truly live, at least in America and now the whole world, in a controlled society, in a fascist society in the true sense. Or the true sense of the meaning of fascism is that it's the merger of state and corporate power. Well, what better description could there possibly be of the world we live in now? So the unexamined life is not worth living. Most people just they're there's nothing going on, and there could be something going on, but they're not curious. They don't ask. They don't even want to know. So hopefully that's helpful. I don't know.
Yeah, it's a lot helpful actually. I love it. It helped me to clarify the paradox as much as you can clarify a paradox in a way. I love the fact what you said of we are, does it come from a universe, but we are the universe as well. And like in general,
But so is everyone
yeah,
else, don't forget.
yeah, yeah.
It's a
No,
hologram, right, with many nodes.
yeah, it brought clarity. Like after I studied the so actually first I went through the Adapt initiative. I read the book that you suggested there, the Soul's Code, which was a nice book. But after I finished reading it, I was like, "Oh, okay, then I'm meant to do this thing that I decided for the true will." And I felt like I realized that I've almost acted in a defensive way of that. But going through then studying better the chaotic approach helped me sort of feel more relieved. I felt more like I was holding my breath because I was like, okay, actually I can decide. I figured it helped me to figure a lot um, some stuff that I was bullshitting myself with, or that I was being defensive. Some beliefs that I had in general. These two approaches helped me a lot in general. Yeah, it's hard for me to explain it because it was a process. But in general, I will just say that it helped me a lot what you said.
Great, great. I mean, and the last thing I'll say is, it's like you're articulating it so well. Of it was helpful, and like everything's a process. Everything's call and response. So all I'll say is like just do magic. It's like just do it, and write down your results. And it's like don't obsess over. Do I have the right system? Just like do stuff and find out what happens, because you can't resolve this stuff from the textbooks, because the reality of the stuff, it has almost nothing to do with how it's written down on the books because all the books have is other people's results, and they have information on how to do certain techniques, right? But with the results you get are maybe similar to other people's, or they may be different. And at the end of the day, the only measure, magic is a subjective art, right? It's empirical in the sense that there are repeatable processes, but it's not an exact science. It's an art, and it'll be different for everyone. Anyone can pick up a bass guitar or like a paintbrush, or 7 notes on the keyboard, but everyone's going to come up with something different with it. And just because the tools are more or less the same for everyone, doesn't mean that your life is. And the only real objective, well, there is no objective measure, but the only measure you have of whether things are quote unquote working or not is your magical record and your life. And life exists within time. It's impermanent, and so it's always changing. It will change even if you don't do anything. So it's not like you don't get to a static point of like, oh, like I know everything, I know the thing that works. It's like this is all sorted out. There's plateaus and there's levels within magic and understanding points, but we're in time. We're organic processes. We're born, we live, we die. Old age, sickness, and death are inevitable. It's like life changes from day to day. Something I will pass on for everyone. It's like something I'm thinking about a lot is whatever you think or be grateful for what you have, and treat people well. It's so easy to forget, particularly in this current moment when we are being trained to shut other people out and focus on what's ours even more than before, and that other people are contagious and we can't be around them, and we're being trained to live in our only for ourselves. It's really bad. Like you could be Elon Musk, but God can bring you to your knees in a second. Everything can be taken away from you in a day. It can. So nothing is permanent. Everything is impermanent. And we all have experienced this and will experience this. And so be compassionate to others, and be kind to people, and don't think you're something, because God can take it away, and read the Bible. God takes it away, and from those who have most sometimes. So
love it. Yeah, it's a good reminder, and sometimes it's tough, especially when there is a lot going on in life. Sometimes for me, I don't think of myself at all like intellectual or something like that, because I feel like I don't understand most of the intellectual stuff, but I feel like I have some good understanding of some stuff, especially economics and finance. But so sometimes it's really hard to be to accept the fact that other people just don't have that other they're ignorant about certain things, like I am for other stuff. And it's tough, because I would love to open up with them and treat them better, but it gets hard, because it's like, oh, actually I don't have anything to share. Especially that's true with family. Growing up, it's harder to find some points in common. But yeah, just speaking out loud, because I'm home.
It's tough, man. It's tough, but you gotta come at life with an open heart. It's hard, I forget a lot, but that's where we're at. I mean, we're all human. We're all going through this veil of tears together.
Yeah.
It's hard now. I find myself like, I'll be like, there's such a huge homeless problem in the U.S. now, where it's like, when I was in L.A., I would leave my house and there's people shooting up in the neck, and it's just like but it's so easy to forget compassion, But compassion doesn't necessarily mean like, compassion doesn't mean having compassion for people's mistakes. That's important. Compassion means understanding that people are not their mistakes. Right.
That's powerful.
And on that note, all right, just do magic. That's my message.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. You don't want to take too much time.
Just keep doing it. All right.
Love it. Thanks a lot, Jason.
You're welcome.